Welcome to the AOA Future in Orthopedic Surgery podcast series. This AOA podcast series will focus on the future in orthopedic surgery and the impact on leaders in our profession. These podcasts will focus on the vast spectrum of change that will occur as the future reveals itself. We will consider changes as they occur in the domains of culture, employment, technology, scope of practice, compensation, and other areas. My name is Doug Lundy, host for this podcast series. Joining us today is Dr. Alex Ghanayem. Dr. Ghanayem is chair and professor of orthopedic surgery at Loyola in Chicago. He served on the American Orthopaedic Association Executive Committee as treasurer, and then most recently as the 137th president of the AOA. He spent his entire professional career at Loyola University Chicago Stritch School of Medicine. He was named the Dr. William H. Scholl Professor and Chair of Loyola's Department of Orthopedic Surgery and Rehabilitation in 2016. In 2021, he also assumed the role of Loyola Medicine's Medical Group Chief Medical Officer, leading an 850 multi-specialty physician and advanced practice provider group and providing care at a large tertiary academic medical center and 2 community hospitals. His clinical interest is in spine surgery, focusing on degenerative and traumatic conditions involving the spine. He went to medical school at Northwestern, did his residency at Case Western Reserve, and his fellowship at the University of Wisconsin in spine surgery. So, Dr. Ghanayem, welcome to the podcast series, sir.
Thanks for having me, Doug.
And Alex, it's truly a pleasure talking with you today. You just rolled off as the 137th president of the AOA, handing the reins to Dr. Kyle Jarret. What are your thoughts after a long year of being president of our esteemed organization?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy that Kyle is sitting in that role right now because, like I said at the meeting, I was preceded by people that were really well qualified and dedicated to the organization and friends, and the people that are following are in the same boat. So, I'm really happy for, Kyle personally, but the organization is really going to benefit because our leadership pipeline or our leaders that are currently serving, really are high quality people and dedicated to the organization.
That couldn't be more true. You look around at all the folks, not just necessarily on the executive committee and not just necessarily chairing the committees themselves, but as you go all the way down into staff in the committees and even the attendees at the annual meeting. I've always said it's a who's who in orthopedic surgery, and if you want to get something done, that's the room to get it in. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the people that are involved are concerned about larger issues. Obviously, day to day, you get down to the individual patient. That is the fabric of what we do. We take care of people and we help solve their problems. But there's a larger arena around that. That starts with just making sure that our workforce, that our residents are properly educated, and to make sure that the environment by which we provide care is set up in a way where it's patient centric and it's reliable in its ability to do what's right and what's best for the patient and for our students over and over and over again. Despite the fact that, what I call the barbarians at the gate, all the things that are lined up against us, we still have to go ahead above that and execute for the benefit of the country and our patients and society.
So over the year that you spent as president, I'm sure a number of things kind of popped to mind in terms of notable events or things that will be, flashes in your memory as you move forward of your year as president of the AOA. Anything come specifically that rings a bell that would be interesting or something that you could reflect on in the future?
Here's a little secret for you. Being president's not a big deal. Okay? Okay, let's think about it for a second. You've got a bunch of people that are on committees that are working hard. And then you've got a bunch of committee chairs that are, herding all of us cats, if you will, because you know how we are.
Right.
We're high performers. We're doing this or doing that. We're multi-engaged. And then these committee chairs, some of which are sitting on the executive committee or report up to other executive committee members, they're digging they're drawing out the roads. They're digging the ditches. They're laying the concrete. And all you got to do as president say is like, yeah, Nice job. That looks good. Who wants to vote for this road to be named, Doug Lundy Way? And then you
Right.
do it. And so the thing that's the most fun about being president and having been one of those entry level committee people, and then a little subcommittee chair, then a committee chair, then executive committee. It's the fun part of it is watching people and saying, that guy, that girl, that resident, they're going places.
Right.
You could see in them the commitment to the organization, the commitment to mission. That's the fun part. And you make all these little micro observations about people, and this is someone that's going to be important 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. That's the fun part of being president, is seeing that growth in people, that commitment, and being able to kind of smile behind the curtain and go, I wish there was video right now, because you get this big, Cheshire cat type, smile, knowing this is going to be good. And I hope I'm alive to see it for some of them. I hope I'm like Mac Everts, and it's
Right.
come to the meeting when I'm like in my 90s, and having all my marbles, because that's the fun part, is seeing people develop and become more ingrained in the fabric that makes us what we are.
So I can totally resonate to a little bit different degree than what you're talking about. I'm currently the president of the Orthopaedic Trauma Association, and it was a little anticlimactic, right? I mean, you're like, okay, here we are, and really all you do is watch everybody do all the cool things that they're doing and kind of coordinate across the matrix. But specifically, people would ask me, go, what is your thing going to be? What is your legacy as OTA president? And I thought long and hard about it. And I said, really, what right do I have as OTA president to put my fingerprint on anything other than move the 5-year strategic plan another 20 yards down the field? That's what my legacy should be, is not putting my individual mark on it, but moving the organization, making sure we keep heading the right thing. And then as I hand off to Tom Higgins, Tom moves it another 20 yards. What are your thoughts relative to that?
So, in the post-COVID world, the game plan has changed, and we can go in such a deep rabbit hole in that. But when I was being interviewed to enter the presidential line, the 5-year plan wasn't enough. I mean, it's the 10-year plan, and it's almost like what we do today. People may not even realize the benefit of it in the next 1 to 2 or 3 years. And I'll just say, I was a treasurer of another organization, and we had done something very different with that organization from a fiscal standpoint back in 2017. And then I got a call maybe 6 months ago from the executive director and said, we were talking about you today, 8 years later.
Wow.
And everybody was so happy about that idea you had and the way you led us in our fiscal plan and how we changed things. And it's like, oh, okay. But I do have an ego. All right. It's a slightly healthy one. I immediately, sat up real straight and kind of felt good about it. But in my mind, I thought, exactly, and I was, okay, people remembered, fine. But what was more important is that they realized that something had happened with a real long game in mind, and we were at a decision point that we had to do something different, and we worked through it, and it turned out. And I think that's it's almost like American presidents. The further away you get from them, the smarter they sound. Someone that was president 30 years ago or 40 years ago sure sounds a hell of a lot better today than they did the day they left office. It's a little bit like that, but no one's really keeping track of us in the media, which is kind of good. But it's that long-term thinking. And so we needed to make some changes, and how the organization runs, how we engage leaders, who are the leaders. The standard academic practice, doesn't exist anymore in the way that we thought about it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And not because we're not dedicated to that, but it's because of situations, and issues beyond our control that are changing the face of healthcare. And so, who are the people we want on the bus? What do they look like? What are their genetics? What do their DNA look like? how they've been successful, what can they contribute to the organization. Those are things I think we do differently, which still keeps the mission front and center, but it allows us to really stay true to the mission while securing the mission and the success of the organization. And those are hard things to put your finger on, but if you think long, you can lay the foundation for it.
Right. So, as you stated, the majority of the target audience for the AOA has typically been the academicians, especially the academic leaders in the large tertiary and quaternary medical centers. But there's been a more recent focus recognizing that there's a lot of strong dynamic leadership within the private practice sector, specifically within Orthoforum and the other huge mega groups in America, and the large, medium-sized groups as well, in terms of trying to learn from those leaders and also have those leaders join us and share information with them. So what are your thoughts on this new diversification of the membership base and what we're trying to do?
So what I would say to that is you've almost got it right. Okay. Those large non-academic groups, and there's a lot of different ways to look at them. There are leaders in those groups that need to be part of the American Orthopaedic Association. But I would take it down even to the just take the 2-person group, the 3-person group. And if there's somebody in that group that says, you know what, the education I had was really important, that person needs to be engaged in the AOA. And if that person says the education I had was lacking, that person needs to be engaged in the American Orthopaedic Association. Any of those people consume our products, whether it's regional meetings, whether it's the annual meeting, Leadership Institute. If they have an interest in what we're talking about, that person should be a member of the organization. If they're concerned about the specialty, they may be a leader of one, and their voices need to be heard. They may have you may be in a small 15,000 person town in a county of 80,000 people, but yet you're still a leader in the operating room. You're a leader in your office. You're a leader in your community, and you may have ideas, contributions to make to the organization that'll benefit the organization. Just because I have a endowed chair and I'm a full professor and yada yada yada, doesn't mean I have all the right ideas. So yes, the big mega groups, absolutely. The medium-sized groups, sure. But to the individual that believes in what we're doing and cares about our specialty, that person needs a pathway, needs to be welcomed in the organization. The contributions could be immense. You never know.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. I just sponsored or nominated Jim Barber, who is in private solo practice down in South Georgia, but he also happens to be the vice chair of the board of counselors for the academy. So once again, a guy in solo practice, been to Jim's practice, is pretty close to the middle of nowhere, yet he's shown extensively, and we fortunately now have him within our ranks.
Perfect.
Point. So we've been around a long time. We formed the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery. We formed the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery, we being the AOA, of course, not you or me. So, and Kyle is currently a 138th president. Where do you see the AOA going from here in the future?
If you think about our mission, it's only forward. I mean, this is not a selfish mission. This is a mission that benefits society. And so we're going to have hurdles. We're going to have, challenges. I mean, just look at what's happening with, healthcare economics right now. There's going to be so many challenges, but our mission is going to keep us sound. It's going to keep us safe. And fortunately, there's enough people in this specialty that believe in it, that if they have to carry the mission on their backs and walk uphill in snow, both directions, to and from our headquarters, they'll do it. And so I think we're going to be successful in the short term, the near term, the midterm, and the long term. I have total confidence and faith in our organization. We're an institution. I mean, we founded in 1887. Look what we've been through. A couple of world wars, a couple of other, mid-size wars, all kinds of politics, the depression, market crashes, you know, COVID. We've been through everything, and yet
That is
here we
true.
are. We're still going.
So, what challenges do you see facing the AOA?
Well, I mean, the challenges we have are shared by everybody. Some of those, the economic challenges, the dollars for value-added benefits that we provide to membership and to trainees are always going to be under threat. I mean, that's just, take AOA and replace it with OTA or double AOS or OREF or anybody. And our residency, training programs, our own hospitals, that's going to be a substantial challenge going forward because, you know, there are not a lot of people that care about what we do that control all the dollars. And and so, there's the list of people ahead of us is long. So I think that, the economic challenges are going to be substantial, but I think we have a game plan, through philanthropy, member engagement, and the dedication of our membership to make sure that we can, overcome that. And then, the membership issues, the being pulled in 14 different directions to do 18 different things. I mean, we're good at that. I mean, as orthopedic surgeons, we're pretty good at multitasking, but we have to make sure that we don't burn our members out, and that we provide a platform for what I call pre-members and members to remain engaged and to really get that value added benefit from being part of something special like the American Orthopaedic Association. Why do we do it? I mean, the time is a fiscal, draw out of us, and we give up family time, we give up work time. But what makes us tick? And fortunately, it's that mission, and that mission is so important that people are willing to make those sacrifices.
Such a great thing. Absolutely. I think, and I got to interact some degree moderating the symposium last year on resident unions, where Lisa Latanza asked us to involve some of the carousel presidents in our symposium. And it was very, very interesting talking with those folks. So certainly you've got to meet quite your share of the English speaking orthopedic presidents across the globe during your year while you were in carousel. Any notable experiences or vignettes that you glean from these spectacular men and women as they lead our sister organizations across the globe?
We'll leave the fun stuff out for the podcast if that's okay.
Okay, just this time.
Yeah, what happens in South Africa stays in South Africa. They're all in different healthcare delivery systems. Their training programs are somewhat different. I mean, I was at the New Zealand organization, and they were having their big banquet at the end of the meeting, and they were graduating their residents. And I can't remember. I think there was 10 or 11. There could have been 15. I'm not sure, for the whole country.
Oh my gosh!
And so I mean, that's I think there's a number of programs that have between 12 or 10 and 12, 10 and 13, just in their program. But the challenges are the same. I mean, they still put in one screw at a time. The bones still break the same way, and the biology of patients is all the same, and leadership's the same. I mean, whether you're fighting the challenges set up by a provincial government or by bureaucratic system that governs your resident education, or dealing with issues of access to care. I mean, for whatever reason, they're all the same. It's like the NBA versus the NFL versus the NHL. I mean, it's still a contest between two teams. Yeah, the puck, the ball, it's different. The number of players per side are different. You're still trying to score, but the game is different. And there are things that are the same: patience, people, teamwork, patience. Again, the way they heal and the problems they have. But the circus around it is just over so slightly different. But the pathway to success is common. You have to stay focused on the mission, what your goal is, and leverage what we know, you know, education and science, in getting to where we need to be. And then you have to deal with the weeds of each country, each organization that has to deal with each set of weeds, which are slightly different. But we have the same challenges. It's something between us and executing on our mission to provide musculoskeletal care and to advocate for it for the benefit of society.
Were you at the Australian meeting in Brisbane?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there too. I was the Australian Orthopaedic Association as a guest nation at the Trauma Association this year, and I was there representing them. And I did a talk comparing the U.S., the Canadian, because our OTA president at the time was Canadian, and the Australian system. And to your point, access in Australia, access in Canada blows away any access problems we have in the U.S. It was just amazing at the problems that we have. Other countries actually have much worse, but they also can do some pretty savvy, innovative stuff that we should maybe consider. Is there anything that you picked up along the way that you thought, the U.S. healthcare system should try that in a microcosm experiment to maybe see if it'll work here?
Yeah, I think what those little end arounds that they use are possible because the systems are different. The players are a little different, and the goals of the players are different. I mean, you don't have major healthcare insurance carriers in Canada per se that has perhaps a different goal than the NHS in England, and two-tier systems you may see in other places like Australia, New Zealand, or South Africa for that matter. The cost of providing that care is so much different. I mean, just what we pay in malpractice in this country, what we pay to execute our billing in this country, compared to, what happens in Canada is just so different. But those end arounds are possible because the systems are a little bit different, and they've learned how to leverage the holes in the system. And so think about the end arounds you use in your place or the ones we use in our place. They're harder to do because there's so many other constraints. And there's so many other people with thumbs in the healthcare pie, if you will. Pie is big, but there's what's it called when you have like 20 fingers on a hand besides polydactyly? There's like 40 thumbs in each pie. So I think everyone's challenges are different, and everyone's ways of dealing with them are different. But I think we have some advantages here. We do spend a lot of money on healthcare, and access is a little bit better depending on your sponsorship, whether you have non-government sponsorship or a certain type of government sponsorship, and what happens with Medicaid, down the road is going to be a real problem. But I think we're still in a better place than others.
So, being president of the AOA, I mean, you and the Academy president are pretty much atop the biggest, most prestigious organizations in orthopedic surgery in the country, and have a unique view of the healthcare delivery system, especially during that year. Any thoughts, reflections, vignettes that you picked up over that year that you kind of can reflect on how orthopedic surgery is practiced and delivered across the United States and North America?
I think at the individual level, it's practiced with enthusiasm. You genuinely still see at the early, mid, and late stages of people's career that they enjoy what they're doing. I mean, I don't take call anymore. I've aged out, but I used to just really dread having to get up at midnight and go in for a 2 a.m. spine case. It sucked. But once we made the incision and the resident operating together, it was just fun again. The disruption in your sleep, and now 2 days to recover after missing a night of sleep versus just one, and the disruption to your practice, it all went away. And in the moment, we were having fun, and you almost still feel like a kid again. And I see that regardless of where people practice. You talk to the Canadians, the Americans, even to the other English-speaking organizations. Yeah, there's always exceptions. There's always a curmudgeon in the corner somewhere. I should have never done this. I should have done something else with my career. I should have been a kosher butcher like my brother or something like that. But they still, when they talk about operating, they still get that little twinkle, and they enjoy that patient care part. And I think that's something we kind of have really special in orthopedics. I'm not sure it exists in every specialty. And I don't know whether it's because we're simple orthopedic surgeons or we're gifted orthopedic surgeons or something in between or a combination of both. But that's something I've seen everywhere, and geographically and stage and career.
What advice would you give your residents or your recent graduates in terms of, let's suppose that they are being nominated for AOA membership in the future? What advice would you give them regarding our organization, how they should invest their time in it?
So this is, the way to think about this is left brain, right brain. You've got art and science on one side. I mean, art and literature on one side, and science and math on the other. So you're a trauma guy, and so you need to go to your trauma meeting. You need to roll up your sleeves, get engaged, but you're an orthopedic surgeon, and you need to invest yourself in things that cross over all disciplines, whether it's the education of our residents. And you may never be an educator in the future, but guess what? You got a farm team that you're going to hire partners from. You think you might be interested in that farm team and how good the players are coming out of that farm team. So you better believe you'll be, the smart people that are in non-academic practices want to make sure that the farm team is working really well, because that's your future partner coming out of those farm teams. You need to crosstalk with the different subspecialists. If you talk to trauma guys all day, you'd probably be pretty bored. I know I'm pretty bored talking to spine guys all day. And so
Trauma guys are kind of colorful, so they keep you entertained.
but you hear the same joke over and over again. It gets kind of tiring. So this is a place where you get to cross disciplines. You get to shed your subspecialty and remember why you became an orthopedic surgeon, and then work toward our goals of education, guiding the future of musculoskeletal care for everybody. And that's the other side of your brain. And if all you do is focus on one side of your brain and forget the other, you're really missing out. So I think what I would tell my residents is find the value added in something outside of your own subspecialty, and don't forget about that, and keep consuming that, because what you'll learn from other people that are similar but a little different than you, and what you'll learn in looking at the bigger picture from a 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 foot view is going to be so different than what size drill bit to use for what size screw. And that's going to make you a better person and a better physician down the road.
I mean, speaking of which, I was looking at your bio and you published a paper in JBJS on wild horses.
Yeah.
What was that all about? I didn't look at it yet.
It's that special section in JBJS of arts and humanities. And I think what they're trying to accomplish is to make sure that we're using the other half of our brain. And so if you follow that series, there's all kinds of cool things that are not nuts and bolts and no p-values and no stats and most of the time not even anything to do with a specific fracture or injury. It's just something different. And that person that uses both sides of their brain can relate to patients better. And I think when Mark started that, Mark Swankowski, I think that was his goal. And so I'd given a talk at the 1887 dinner on something unrelated to medicine on America's wild horses. And he wanted me, and wildlife photography is my hobby. And he said, listen, I want you to write a short article for the arts and humanities section. So I did. And it's just another part of me, but it's just something different. You would not expect that, from somebody that's wearing loops and doing a spine case. Or would
Living
you?
in Chicago. Yeah.
Or would you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Or would you? And speaking of which, I mean, Rex Hayden, I guess he'll be the 140th president. Is that right? Because he follows Steve Cates.
I need to get my calculator out to count that guy.
You guys are racking up those years. But Rex, at the 1887 dinner this year, Rex talked about the headhunters. I believe it was Peru.
Yeah, I mean, archaeology is his gig.
It was just crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a flashy title, but
right.
Here's the other half of his brain. Rex Hayden is not just a nutty professor when it comes to orthopedic oncology. He's a nutty professor, like Indiana Jones.
Right.
Looking at relics in South America.
Dragging his kids with
that's
him.
cool. That's cool. That's really different about him. But it shows another facet of the individual, and the things you do when you're on digs and relating to local laborers and people that have similar interests. It's team building again. You know, it's understanding your environment again. Where do you hear that? Sound like the operating room a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, boss, parting shot here as the past president of our esteemed organization. Any parting shot thoughts in terms of future in orthopedic surgery, future in AOA, future in leadership in our profession?
I when I became a member of the organization, I had no aspirations of being its president. I mean, if someone said to me, whatever it was, 2004, you're going to be AOA president someday, I would have laughed at them so hard. Okay. And so what I would tell young members and members is no matter how busy things get, then, the RVU and the next clinic visit and then, another surgery, don't forget about why you're an orthopedic surgeon, what the goal of our profession is, and don't forget to exercise the other part of that brain, because the value I've gotten, I mean, the time served, and everything else I've put in the organization, I've gotten 100 times back in terms of, what it's done for me quietly as an individual and what I've been able to gather from the AOA and then give back to my colleagues that I lead my department. Just little things, little trinkets of little pearls of wisdom, little ways of doing things, ways of working with people and dealing with struggles and developing their own personal leadership. And so this gives us back so much more than we put into it. But it takes you a little time to realize that. It's like a little investing in yourself and the specialty, and then in the people that work around you and that you hope that will be taking care of you someday when you need their help.
Very well said. Very well said. And that's excellent closing there. So it's been my absolute pleasure to have this time discussing future in orthopedic surgery and leadership with Dr. Alex Ghanayem, who is a spine surgeon. He's chair at Loyola and most recently the 137th president of the American Orthopaedic Association. Dr. Ghanayem, thank you, sir, for spending this time with us.
My pleasure. Don't do it again if you want.
All right, let's do that. And we look forward to seeing y'all again on other futures in orthopedic surgery and this AOA podcast channel.